Okay, I want to show you some overachieving stuff. This is what happens with when overachievers just overachieving is not the easiest thing. And when you're in midlife, overcoming overachieving is not all that cut and dried. So here I am. You know how I feel about my home, my apartment, beautiful place, my safe haven. It's beautiful views, it's clean, it's neat all the time. Look at my apartment. All right? This is what overachieving will do to you. It'll make you do stuff that is crazy. Actually, this is not really overachieving. This is just crystalline, making a decision and sticking to it. So I decided on October. All right, so look, the topic for today is about overachieving and how it starts in childhood, okay? And actually, I'm gonna tell you my story. When I was a kid, we were nomadic. It was my mom and me, and she's a single mom doing the best she can, and she did a damn good job. No doubt about it. My mom did a phenomenal job of raising me, keeping me safe, giving me what I needed. We were nomadic though. By the time I was 9 years old, we had moved 13 times. I had gone, by the time I was 9 years old, I was in the third grade, I had gone to probably 8 or 9 different schools. I'm not kidding. There were times when I was at 2 or 3 schools, different schools in one school year. And look, I'm flexible, okay? Everywhere I went, I was always safe, always had, I always had what I needed at home. What this means though, is that as an adult, well, let me stick with childhood. What it meant as a child was that I had to grow up pretty quickly. I had to be very flexible. If my mom was moving, it was usually because of something financial, or she was in a situation that was temporary and she was just kind of taking the next best step. All right. She was single, she was young, and she had a child. And again, I was always safe. All right. My mom was a very good mom. She was always right there by my side. Like, she wasn't somebody who was out partying. She was somebody who was just working and, trying to get an apartment or a home for us and doing different things, trying on different things. There were times when we were roommates. She had roommates. There were times when we stayed with my grandmother or my grandfather in Oakland, my grandmother in Compton, my aunt in Los Angeles, a friend and her were going to get an apartment over here and things, shit happens, right? Especially when you're in your 20s. And just because you have a baby doesn't mean that things are not going to happen, right? So for me, moving is something that is a part of my nature. So, and my mom, when we moved and I was young, she never had a bad attitude about it. She was never stressed out about moving. Moving for her was no big deal. My mom is an Aries, or was an Aries. My mom died years ago. But she was an Aries, and she was just always optimistic and never afraid of anything. She was such a warrior. And so I have that same spirit. So around the beginning of August, October 1st or 2nd, something like that, I get this idea in my head that I'm going back to California. I want to see my grandmother. I want to set up some new financial accounts. I want to meet with my financial advisor, and I need to do all these things in person. I want to do some banking. All that stuff needs to be done in person. I need to be able to sign stuff and show my ID and opening up new accounts. They don't, my banker was like, you got to be here to do it. So that's what I said I was going to do. At first, I thought I was going to do that just for like 2 weeks, which would have meant that I could have kept my apartment. And, I was thinking about bringing a dog sitter, someone who wanted to just come and hang out here and sit with a polo for 2 weeks. And I would go there, then come right back. But Spirit was like, no, you're going to need more time. And Spirit was very, very adamant about that. Well, when I looked at this more deeply, by the way, it's not just about like handling bank accounts and setting up new stuff and moving money around and all this kind of thing. What this is really about, and I'm going to make this very quick because I want to go into overachieving and what that means for midlife. But what's actually going on is that I need to close my California story completely. And that means that because I want to be reborn in Paris. So I will be returning to Paris on January 14th so that I can spend my 56th birthday here in the City of Light. And this is a huge birthday. 56 is an 11, so you know that that's a master number. But also, this is the beginning of a new cycle. We're in 2025. That's a 9-year. So 2026 is a new cycle for 9 years. And so Spirit has been telling me, you have to end this cycle completely and start exactly the way you want to start. So I want to start my new cycle in Paris, in Europe, and I want it to be badass and peaceful. So this is why Spirit is like, dude, you want that? This is what you're going to have to do. You got to close out this old Parisian story, close out the old California story, and then come back on new terms, with new ground, with a new self-concept, all this stuff has to be fresh, but the old stuff has to die. So I gave my manager notice. Of course, I paid for the whole month, but I did say 2 weeks. All right. And I said, and this is the overachiever. Now I'm back on track with overachieving. So the overachiever in me was like, I'm going to get this place cleaned out in 2 weeks. All right. And at about 8 days in, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I cannot do it. I need another week. And then it turns out I needed another month. So I'm now officially leaving on the 29th. And this stuff is a mess. But the way I do it, I kind of make everything messy, put it in place, make it, and then put it in neat, and then make it messy again, then put it together again. And that's how this is going. So it looks like a disaster, but it's not as bad as it looks. I have literally empty drawers, empty closets, and I have really just to, anyway, you don't need to know all that, okay? You do not need to know all that. Just suffice it to say that I'm going to be done. I'm going to be out of here on the 28th like I planned. I'll be in California on October 30th, and things will be off and running. Now, going back to overachieving. So from what I have seen, okay, from what I have noticed in my life and in my world, nobody wakes up one day in midlife and decides that they're going to become an overachiever. It's like this drive to push and to hustle goes back into our childhood. And I think that many high achieving women will find that in childhood, it wasn't about being an ambitious child as much as it was about being in survival mode. So these labels that we get, like, a good girl, or, someone who's the responsible one, it's a role that you played so that you could feel safe and valued and loved. And I know that that was true for me. And the problem is that these roles don't really dissolve when you grow up. Instead, they actually calcify into a mindset. So it's like if you were a child and you were a fixer, you're still a fixer now in adulthood. And I think that it's important to understand that there's an inner critic that wasn't there before. Like you brought that in. Maybe it's the voice of your mom, but there's an inner critic that's driving you to achieve. And so you find yourself doing a lot of things. You take on big projects, you take on giant projects like this, and a lot of what you're doing is trying to make other people happy. And that is about, again, safety and being a people pleaser. So again, childhood conditioning. Overachievers tend to have grown up in environments where love and approval were actually conditional. So maybe you were praised for good grades, but you were ignored when you had tears and, were angry or upset about something. And the chaos in the house maybe meant that you had to be strong. Like my mom, she was a strong woman, but I had to show up for her, right? So that she didn't have to worry about me, even though I was 5 and 6 years old. I didn't want anybody having to worry about me. So that, I think, is where this stuff begins. Here's where the shift needs to happen. You need to understand that your worth was never really tied to what you do. Your worth should be tied to not like your work or your discipline or trying to prove yourself, okay? Your worth comes from being a human being, being God's child. So you don't need to be a caretaker. You don't need to be the star student, okay? You get to define the roles for yourself now on your own terms, all right? And I think that should begin with your soul so that you can discover who you are authentically. Number one, you don't need to prove your worth on any level, but we're human. And one of the things I encourage myself to do, but I also work with my students and my clients in this way, is to find worth more in just your humanity. So for me, I have a practice of now talking to people I don't know. If it's on the street, like I live in Paris, so people don't just say good morning to one another on the street. In California, we used to say good morning to one another all the time, but here in Paris, it's not, it's a big city, and so people don't do that so much here. And they're French also, so it's not a part of the culture like it was back in the US. But one of the things I do is I just say good morning to people, and especially in my neighborhood. There are also very clear class distinctions here in Paris. And so what I do is I just speak to everyone, whether it's an old lady dressed in Chanel or, an African nanny who is taking care of somebody's, French babies. It's always good morning, madame. Good morning, good morning, monsieur. And that is really what that reminds me of, is that everybody is human. Everybody has dignity. And I know that on a intellectual practice, but when it comes to actually living it, for me, saying good morning to people and looking people in the eye, seeing people, is really a way to reinforce my own worth. I have a space in this world, and I'm going to put myself in your space, whether you like it or not. Why? Because I'm a human being with dignity, and you're a human being with dignity. And I'm sorry, that thing that's on the window is just distracting the heck out of me. It's quite large, and it's probably nothing. It's not going to hurt me, but still, it's big. Anyway, so let me get on track here, and let me make sure that I actually stay on track. What I'm actually wanting is to reinforce that there's freedom in letting go of the roles altogether. So you don't need to be a caretaker. You don't need to be a star student, okay? You get to define your roles, or to define that you have a zero role, all right? For me, I'm clearly wanting to be the butterfly of the neighborhood because I'm talking to everybody. See me? Hi, I'm a butterfly. Hi. But really, that none of that stuff that can feel like performance, but really it's just the inner child in me wants to play with your inner child. Okay, so what I want to make sure we also understand as overachievers, and especially in midlife, is that this isn't just about a personality type, it's a wound, all right? And so in midlife, that old scaffolding begins to collapse. So your body, your relationships, your money, they all start rejecting what is unsustainable for your achievement. The things that you have to do, your body's going to start breaking down. You can't just juggle everything again, right? And you were never really meant to play that role where you are everybody's everything. It is time to break free from those roles. And I want to invite you to step into letting go of those old scripts, identifying those old scripts and letting them go. And I want to challenge you to write down 3 of the roles that you play, 3 of the scripts that you rehearse or that you are living out. And I want you to think about how you can let go of those things. Now, I have written an ebook and it's called The Midlife Makeover, How High-Performing Women Like You Can Reclaim your pleasure, your power, and your purpose. In that book, I talk about how we became these overachieving, high-performing women, and how, yes, it's gotten us far, and yes, we are responsible for a lot, and we take on a lot, and at the same time, we neglect ourselves a lot. Our deeper needs get neglected. Now, I know a lot of you, so many people come to me and they're like, Crystalline, I do yoga and I get a massage, okay? And I get my nails done, I get my hair done. I take care of myself. And I'm like, that is not taking care of your inner self, because I know you are on medication, you are doing marijuana, you are drinking, and you are not, those are your coping mechanisms, okay? And putting lipstick on that shit is not honestly taking care of yourself. That's just putting lipstick on it and getting a massage every week or every 2 weeks. That is not doing the deep work. For me, the deep work is about connecting to source energy, connecting to your spirit guides, connecting to your ancestors. It's about creating a sensual, even sexual relationship with life itself, with your loving romantic partner. It's about coming together within yourself and feeling that safety and security, not from the things that you did, but from your connection to the divine. To me, that's where this work begins. And I want to invite you to download that book. You can download it for free. I have an incredible community that I'm going to invite you into. But for right now, just start with the book and start by identifying those roles and coming to understand, did you choose those roles, or were they chosen because you were afraid of what would fall apart if you didn't step into that role, or how you would not be embraced if you didn't step into that role? That is showing you where your weak spots are and where your wounding is. All right, friend. Thanks so much for watching this video. If this is interesting work to you, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, also share. If this video is going to help somebody that you know, please share it. Thank you. Bye for now.